The sun had just risen above the African horizon, painting the Masai Mara sky crimson as Marcus stepped out of his small hut. It was a day like any other, or so he thought, an empty coffee cup in hand, his breath forming thin wisps in the cool dawn air. 10 years living in this wilderness had taught him that each day brought its own surprises, but nothing could have prepared him for the moment that was about to unfold. The scent of red earth and savanna grass, damp with morning dew, filled the air as Marcus' eyes caught a silhouette moving at the edge of his vision. Not wind stirring the bushes, not clouds drifting across the ground. A golden form with mysterious black spots advancing toward him. An African lion, the perfect predator, a creature made of strength and silence. But she wasn't moving like a hunter. She walked slowly, heavily, with a burden in her mouth. Marcus' heart raced wildly. 10 years of studying wildlife couldn't erase the most basic survival instinct, flee from danger. But there was something in the female lion's gait that kept him frozen in place. Her brilliant amber eyes weren't those of a predator. They were the eyes of desperation, of a mother pleading. The distance between them narrowed 20 meters, 15 meters, 10 meters. The dawn light was now bright enough for Marcus to clearly see what the lion carried. A lion cub, bloodied, almost motionless, a deep wound on the shoulder, a leg dangling unnaturally. Only the faint movements of the cub's chest indicated she was still alive. The mother lion stopped just a few steps from the porch. In an eternal moment, Marcus and the lion locked eyes. Not enemies, not prey and predator. Just a being standing before the fragile boundary between life and death. With a gentleness that surprised him, the mother lion placed her cub on the wooden porch. The little cub let out a weak cry when she touched the hard wooden surface. Then the mother stepped back, never taking her eyes off Marcus. The message needed no words. Save my child. Reason told Marcus he should slam the door shut, call the rangers, do anything but engage in this dangerous situation. But there was another force deeper, more primal, driving him. Compassion that transcended species boundaries. Slowly, never taking his eyes off the mother lion, Marcus knelt down. The cub's breathing was weak and shallow, her eyes revealing pain. Beyond words, the wound on her shoulder was deep, the marks of fangs likely from a male lion seeking to eliminate the cub, to bring the female back into estrus. A harsh reality of the wild that Marcus knew all too well. It's okay, Marcus whispered. Though he knew it wasn't. The cub was dying. Without immediate intervention, she wouldn't survive the hour. With slow but determined movements, he removed his flannel shirt, wrapped it around the tiny form, and lifted her up. The mother lion let out a soft hiss, a sound enough to make every nerve in Marcus' body tense, but she didn't attack. Instead, she stepped onto the porch, chose a position a few meters from the door, and lay down, a silent sentinel. As Marcus retreated into the hut, cradling the trembling little form in his arms, he knew his life had just changed forever, because in that moment, his fate and the fate of these wild creatures had become intertwined in ways no one could have predicted. And the real story was just beginning. In the small hut, time seemed to slow down. Every moment was precious for the fragile life in Marcus's arms. He placed the lion cub on the wooden table, sunlight from the window illuminating her. Blood-soaked golden fur, the deep wound at her shoulder. Bright red and dark crimson intermingled fresh and clotted blood. With trembling hands, Marcus retrieved the dusty first aid kit from the drawer. Each movement a battle against time and fear. The satellite phone emitted monotonous beeps as Marcus dialed. 3 rings, 4 rings, 5 rings, each passing second. Felt like a century. James, here, a gruff voice answered from the other end. As Marcus described the situation, the cub's breathing grew weaker. James's instructions came clear and concise. Clean the wound, stop the bleeding, keep her warm, provide fluids, basic steps to keep life from slipping away. But Marcus knew she needed more. I'll call Sarah, James said, his voice shifting to emergency mode. She's at the conservation project area about an hour's drive away. Try to keep the cub alive until she arrives. 1 hour, 60 endless minutes. Outside, the mother lion remained at her post. Occasionally, Marcus caught her gaze through the window crack, those burning amber eyes unblinking, waiting in terrifying silence. In his 10 years working in Africa, he had never witnessed anything like this. An apex predator placing trust in a human, the 1,000-year enemy of her kind. Warm honey water dripped into the cub's mouth. Her tiny tongue responded slightly, a feeble movement, but filled with determination to survive. Marcus used a medical pipette to add a few more drops, his heartbeat synchronizing with each difficult swallow of the tiny creature. The roar of a car engine shattered the tense atmosphere. Sarah had arrived earlier than expected, her Land Rover raising clouds of red dust on the dirt road. Through the window, Marcus saw her stop abruptly upon seeing the mother lion. The scene was extraordinary. A wildlife rescue expert standing less than 10 meters from a wild African lion. With no protective fence, no tranquilizer gun, the mother lion raised her head watching, but didn't move from her guard position. Sarah moved with the calm of someone who had spent her life working with the planet's most dangerous predators. Each step slow and deliberate, eyes never leaving the lion, hand never reaching for the tranquilizer gun on her shoulder. "I've heard about this," Sarah whispered as she entered the door, but never believed it could happen. Her blue eyes widened at the scene inside. Marcus kneeling beside the dying lion cub. With the skill of a battlefield surgeon, Sarah opened her medical bag, retrieving syringes, vials, and sterile bandages. Without unnecessary words, she began her work. The needle pierced the skin, antibiotic fluid flowing into the weak body. The cub twitched, an instinctive reaction to the sudden pain. Septozole, Sarah explained. Broad-spectrum antibiotic will prevent infection. Her hands moved with astonishing precision, stitching the wound, cleaning, bandaging. Male lion. Attack, no doubt. One of the cruelest aspects of nature, killing cubs to force females to mate again. Marcus looked through the window toward the mother lion, still standing guard. "She knows we're trying to save her cub." Sarah nodded slightly, not pausing her work. "Perhaps. Or perhaps she's simply out of options. But she chose you, Marcus. Of all the creatures on this earth, she brought her cub to you." The sun began to set, painting the Masai Mara sky red. The room was bathed in brilliant orange twilight, casting long shadows of the two humans and the small creature fighting for survival. Sarah had done everything possible. Now they had to wait. "Tonight will decide," she said, packing away the medical equipment. "If she survives the night, she might have a chance." Marcus looked at the cub, pitifully small in the warm nest he had made. Her breathing remained shallow and rapid, but more regular. The tiny amber eyes occasionally flickered open, hazily looking into an alien world. As Sarah drove away, darkness enveloped the savannah. Marcus lit the oil lamp, the warm yellow light creating a small oasis in the African night. The mother lion was still there, her eyes reflecting the lamplight like two glittering gems in the darkness. The long night passed with the weak breathing of the cub and the rhythmic chirping of insects outside. Marcus didn't sleep, his hand constantly touching the small form to feel the warmth, to ensure that tiny heart was still beating. Each hour passed like a century. Every time the cub stirred, every time she made a weak sound, Marcus started, fearing it might be her last. But when the first rays of dawn shone through the window, the cub was still alive. Not just alive, but stronger. Her eyes opened more clearly, responding when Marcus gently stroked her head. A warm feeling spread through his chest, not a sense of victory, but at the powerful will to live in this tiny creature. Outside, the mother lion stood up, tense, alert, as if sensing the change. Marcus opened the door, careful not to disturb the sleeping cub. Their eyes met again. Human and lion, two different beings connected by something deeper than instinct, deeper than logic. "She's still alive," Marcus said, his voice raw from lack of sleep and emotion. "And I think she's going to make it." The mother lion stared at him, motionless as a statue of gold under the African dawn. Then, in a moment Marcus would never forget, she slowly closed her eyes and opened them again, like a silent nod, a wordless thank you. The battle for life wasn't over. But in that moment, under the brilliant Kenyan sky, Marcus knew they had made it through the longest night, and that was just the beginning. 3 days passed like a hazy dream. 3 days of antibiotic injections, of honey water administered drop by drop, of sleepless nights beside the flickering oil lamp. 3 days during which the mother lion never left the porch, occasionally disappearing into the darkness, only to return with a small prey, evidence of hasty hunts between her guard duties. 3 days in which Marcus's world shrank to the distance between his bed and the table, where the lion cub was gradually recovering. The 4th morning brought a subtle change. While changing the bandage, something different appeared in the cub's response. No longer passive acceptance of care. Instead, a stirring, a gentle resistance. Those amber eyes now alert and watchful. When a hand touched the injured front leg, a soft growl escaped. Not a cry of pain, but a warning. The return of wild instinct. A sign not just of physical recovery, but a fighting spirit. What every predator needs to survive in the unforgiving wild world. The wound was still severe. Sarah came every day, bringing medicine and valuable experience. This morning, her eyes were serious as she observed the cub. X-rays were needed. Concern about the broken shoulder blade hung in the air like a sentence. A lion that cannot hunt is a lion that cannot live in the wild. A creature born for freedom would have to spend its life in artificial reserves, a shadow of what it should be. The nearest clinic with X-ray equipment was at the ranger station, nearly 2 hours' drive, over bumpy red dirt roads. And there was another problem, the mother lion. How to explain to a wild creature that her cub needed to be taken away, that this was the best chance to save her? As if sensing those thoughts, the mother lion rose from her guard position, her eyes following every movement through the window pane. Sunlight streaming through created bright patches on her tiny fur, highlighting the faint spots still visible on her legs and belly, ghosts of her cubhood markings. Natural camouflage refined over eons to forge the perfect predator. With the transport box prepared, the moment of confronting the mother lion was heavy with inexpressible emotions. Heart pounding in his chest, Marcus stepped onto the porch. The lioness immediately stood up, muscles tensing beneath her golden fur. Not words, but tone and intention are what communicate with animals. In that moment, there was a feeling of standing at the edge of something greater than human understanding. A dialogue between species, a connection far beyond language. The unblinking, amber eyes of the mother lion seemed to weigh each movement. When the metal transport box appeared, the mother lion remained standing tense, but showing no signs of aggression. The weak cry of the cub echoed as she was separated from the warm blanket that had become her sanctuary. Each step toward the vehicle was heavy with anxiety. The mother lion moved along, the distance between her and the humans never more than 3 meters. When the box was placed in the back of the car, the mother lion stopped, head held high, ears perked, all senses in a state of extreme alertness. No promise could be conveyed across the boundary between species, only trust, fragile and precious. The journey to the ranger station was a nightmare of red dust and jolting bumps. Each shake of the car brought worry about the cub's wounds. 20 years working in Africa, and Marcus had never witnessed anything as extraordinary as this. A mother lion trusting humans with her only child. At the clinic, a serious atmosphere prevailed. Cold professional gestures, emotionless X-ray machines, the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. In the waiting room, each minute passed like an hour. Broken shoulder but repairable, a small pin and a long recovery period, but hope for complete rehabilitation. The surgery lasted 2 hours. 2 hours of being unable to sit still, unable to eat, unable to think about anything but the tiny creature on the operating table, and the mother lion waiting at home. When everything was over, the cub lay in a recovery cage, still sleeping from anesthesia, a small brace securing the injured front leg. 1 night of monitoring at the clinic was required. Returning home alone brought a strange, hollow feeling, not knowing if the mother lion would still be there. On the way back, the African sunset painted the sky red, creating a scene so ethereal it ached. How did the mother lion know to seek him out? Why this hut among all the dwellings near the reserve? Perhaps she had been observing for a long time, learning to judge human character the way predators assess prey. Or perhaps it was simply desperation, a last gamble by a mother trying to save her only child. Arriving home, darkness had enveloped the savannah. The porch was empty, no sign of the mother lion. A soft call dissolved into the vast air. No answer. No shape gliding through the darkness. All that night, by the window, under the star-filled African sky, the waiting became hopeless. The mother lion did not return. The next morning, Marcus made the journey back to the clinic with a heavy heart. The cub was awake, her eyes brighter, responding more strongly to human presence. A sleepless night by the medical team had ensured there was no post-surgical fever. She had even accepted a little ground meat from a syringe. A true warrior, one of the vets murmured, as they carefully transferred the cub into the transport box. With proper care, hope for full recovery remained alive. On the way home, thoughts of the mother lion kept surfacing. Had she lost patience and gone searching for her cub? Or had she accepted that her child was dead and returned to the solitary life of a wild predator? As the car rolled into the yard, the mother lion's absence became obvious. A strange, empty feeling descended. But when Marcus opened the transport box inside the house and placed the cub gently onto her familiar blanket, a deeper realization took hold. Quiet, profound. The mother lion hadn't abandoned her cub. She had entrusted her. An act of absolute faith. Perhaps instinct had told her that with such an injury, her daughter could never return to the wild immediately. Perhaps, in that unknowable depth of animal wisdom, she had understood that the only path to survival for her child was to stay with the human who had not turned away when she begged for help. The days that followed passed in a new rhythm. Remote work happened beside the dining table where the cub dozed, sometimes waking to stretch or nibble at finely ground meat. Each morning began with calls to Sarah and James, updates, instructions, questions. Each night ended with bandage changes, careful monitoring, and the door left slightly ajar, not from hope, but from respect. Respect for the choice of a creature who had given her child to a stranger. In the second week, the cub stood for the first time on all four legs, wobbly, uncertain, and then firm. Her first steps were small, but every inch forward was a victory written in courage. One afternoon, a low, shaky roar echoed through the hut when she caught sight of a bird outside the window. Hunting instinct awakening. Word began to spread. First, whispers, then curiosity, then awe. People from nearby villages came first with suspicion, then with reverence. The tale of the man raising a lion cub grew into something bigger. Around evening fires, the story was told again and again of the mother lion who had brought her wounded child, not to her den, not into the wilderness, but to a human, and trusted him. Wildlife researchers arrived next. Cameras, clipboards, questions. They examined the cub, analyzed the hut. They spoke of stress responses and maternal desperation, of anomalies in predator behavior. But no theory could fully explain what had happened, because this was not normal lion behavior. This was something unique and astonishing, exception to the laws of wild nature. As the third month passed, the cub, now named Jabari, meaning brave in Swahili, had grown into a powerful and striking young lion. The wound had healed completely, leaving only a small scar and a faint limp when she ran. But none of that dimmed her spirit. Once a weak patient cradled in blankets, she had become a vibrant force inside the hut, curious, wild-hearted, and alive. Then came the day for a difficult decision. Jabari couldn't stay in the hut forever. She needed space. She needed the feel of grass under her paws, trees to climb, smells to chase, an environment more suited to her nature. Sarah and James had found a private reserve, not entirely wild, but not a cage either, a semi-natural environment where Jabari could continue to grow, learn, and live, still protected, but with dignity. The morning of farewell was quiet, weighty. A reserved vehicle parked at the edge of the porch, waiting for its special passenger. Jabari, sensing change, paced the room, muscles taut, amber eyes gleaming with restless energy. She paused at her blanket, her sanctuary from those early, trembling days. One last touch behind her ears, the place she still liked best. No words could express this bond. It had been forged in the crucible of life and death, between fear and trust, between species. As Jabari was gently led to the vehicle, a shape flickered at the edge of vision, a golden form, low in the tall grass. Just for a moment, but unmistakable. The mother lion had returned. watching from a distance, silent and still, witnessing her child being led into a new chapter of life. No one else saw her. No one else heard the whisper of the savanna wind, carrying the scent of lion fur and the hush of breath held in the wild. But Marcus saw, and for him, that fleeting moment was everything. A wordless thank you. The vehicle pulled away slowly, the red dust rising like memory. I sat calmly inside, glancing once back through the slats, before facing forward toward the unknown. Marcus stood alone, on the porch, watching the horizon where the mother lion had vanished. One chapter closed, another began, but the true story was far from over, because the lessons of this extraordinary encounter would never fade. The deep, silent connection between species, the kind of compassion that defies instinct, and the immeasurable strength of trust in the wild heart of Africa, where survival is often brutal and brief. A mother lion once brought her wounded child to a human, and in doing so, she reminded the world that even the fiercest creatures sometimes come to us not as beasts but as parents. And when they do, all we can do is answer with everything we have. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Mente Tranquila for more powerful true stories of compassion between humans and animals. Share this video. You never know who needs to believe in the quiet strength of trust today. And remember, sometimes the wild calls for help, and it's our turn to answer.